Yes, hi, Preston.
Hey, Wolf, how you doing, man?
Hey, man, how's it going?
Good. It's always wonderful to get a chance to catch up with you. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving with your family.
Yeah, nice and quiet, nothing much going on, which is nice for a change. You know, we've been touring a lot, so it's nice to be home for a little bit.
It's been a while since our last chat just before you released Headbanger Symphony, and we now have a new Accept studio album, 2 live albums, including the amazing new Symphonic Terror live at Wacken. It's been a wonderful 2 years for Accept fans, and you guys have been amazingly busy.
Yeah, man, we're cranking them out. I mean, why not, right? I mean, did this amazing show at Wacken last year, so we wanted to fans who weren't there to able to see it, you know. So it's all good.
Well, and the last time you and I spoke, you said you've always wanted to do something like this, combine your classical solo work with Accept's material on stage. What was the experience like finally bringing this to life?
Oh, it was magic, man. It was just a magic night, I have to say. It was just unforgettable. And I think this is going to be one of those days on my deathbed. I'll still remember it. Because it was really, everything came together so wonderfully. It was just magic. And I never thought I might see the day that we actually are together with a symphony on stage, but there it was, and it worked.
You had to be like a kid in the proverbial candy store, because this really blends your passion for classical music plus the music you've been playing for almost 5 decades with Accept and before that.
Yeah, it actually was. And you know what's weird? These songs, even though I've been playing them for like 30, 40, 50 years almost, no, not 50, but 40, some of them sound like they were written for orchestration, but of course they weren't, you know. It's just, there's a lot of elements in our regular guitar playing and writing style that sounds really like it was written for an orchestra, weirdly enough.
Right. I think fans listening to it and watching it get a new perception of Accept music and a new appreciation for it as well.
Yeah, it almost sounds like in another dimension or whatever. You know, I don't want to sound like to make too much out of it, but it definitely sounds like it was elevated to another level a little bit.
So how much preparation and rehearsal with the orchestra did all of this take?
Surprisingly little with the orchestra, because the orchestra is first very expensive and then always booked out, you know, so you can't like say, hey, we're going to come over for a couple of weeks and rehearse this with everybody. It's not, that doesn't work like that. So we literally had a day or so before the show to go through everything and make sure everything worked, and it did. You know, once you've done your homework and once you've written all the arrangements properly and there's no mistakes and everything is set up correctly, then it's really not, there's not a lot of time involved.
And there was an incredible flow to the evening set as you moved through the 3 different sections. Was there a lot of thought put into song sequencing for the show?
There was, of course. You know, we started preparing everything and thinking about everything about a year prior to the show. And it all started with the idea to just perform some songs for Headbanger Symphony live for the very first time. That's how everything got started. And then, you know, it was built on that. Then somebody said, well, the new album's going to come out around that time, so why don't you play some new songs? And then if the whole band of Accept band is there and an orchestra is there, why don't you guys play some Accept songs together? So it's really one thing led to another.
I understand you guys are going to do a full tour with an orchestra next year, bring this to the worldwide masses, so to speak?
Yeah, we are. Crazy. Yeah, it's another crazy endeavor. But, you know, now that we've seen it once and we've got a taste of it, now we want more of it. And I think the fans want more of it. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring a similar set list. We're going to expand the set list a little bit and bring some other, you know, other surprises as well. But we're going to do it indoors at sort of nice symphony halls and city centers and sort of nicer venues, not your typical rock clubs. So it's going to be almost like a concert evening with Accept and classical music.
Right, and as you already alluded, that should allow you to open up the set list a bit.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not going to be exactly like that because, I mean, we catered a little bit to the festival crowd there at Wacken. We kind of left some of the slower stuff away, and we made sure everything is a little more suitable to the metal fans. But at the same time, I was pleasantly shocked how much the metal fans got into that, especially that instrumental stuff that Headbanger Symphony material. That was the big unknown. How would they react to it? But they loved it.
And you managed to slip Romeo and Juliet in there, which was, I believe, an unreleased track from the Headbanger Symphony. That was a nice treat.
That was something that was previously hardly heard. So, yeah, definitely. Romeo and Juliet is one of my favorites, actually.
So now, were there, because I know you had to sort of figure out which songs would probably go best with the orchestra, were there some accept tracks that you considered for the show that ultimately you sort of nixed because they just didn't quite feel right with the orchestra?
Yeah, there was some stuff we didn't even try first. I mean, like some like Restless and Wild. I mean, it might work. See, the thing is, when you do it properly and you do it right and you write the right arrangement, even a song like that might work. So there wasn't anything that we tried and in the end nixed. There was just out of time restraints. We just concentrated on the ones that I felt we either have to play because No Except Show is like Balls to the Wall and Metal Heart. Those songs we knew we had to do. But there were some pleasant surprises where I thought I was kind of skeptical at first, like Breaker, for instance, or even Fast as a Shark. I mean, who would have thought that Fast as a Shark is playable with an orchestra? I didn't.
And it all turned out so beautifully, though. Now you and I didn't get a chance to chat last year when The Rise of Chaos came out, if you don't mind my backtracking a bit.
Sure.
So when I was listening to the album, it was songs like Die by the Sword, The Rise of Chaos, To the Worlds Colliding, and Race to Extinction. I know this wasn't a concept record, and I know Mark's really the lyrical guy, but it feels like there was more of a theme with this album than the previous three. Am I wrong there?
Purely coincidental if it is. I mean, we're always writing stuff that's sort of on our mind, basically, and sometimes that sort of blends together in a weird way a little bit. And, you know, with the title track, The Rise of Chaos, that felt like it was dead on the money, looking at the world situation politically and environmentally, and like, my God, it is getting more and more chaotic around the world in every aspect. So we felt like that was a lucky coincidence there, that it fits so well into the times we live in.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, though, the world has always had this chaos to it, and you guys, this week actually happens to be the 40th anniversary of the tragic Jonestown Massacre, and that's a tough subject to tackle, but were you surprised at all when Mark brought Kool-Aid, those lyrics, to you?
Yeah, well, you know, the way that we write, it's almost like we bring the idea to Mark, and then he sort of fleshes out the lyrics, but we just had that. Honestly, Peter and I were just jamming, and all of a sudden we had this thing pop in our head, like, don't drink the Kool-Aid, which we've all heard. You know, we've all heard it at one point or another, and it just rolled off the tongue. It fit the song that we had, and we did a little bit of research where it all came from, and then, there's that story of Jonestown, and all of a sudden we were like, hey, there's our story. Let's write a song about that. Yeah, we brought that to Mark, and he was all about it.
Well, and it's interesting that here we are 4 decades after that, and that whole pop culture phenomenon of don't drink the Kool-Aid seems more relevant than ever.
Yeah, and I have no idea. To be honest, in Europe, nobody has a clue what Kool-Aid is, and I've never had. I didn't know. I mean, I grew up in Germany. I didn't know. We didn't have Kool-Aid. I have no idea what it even is. But now I do. But, you know, until then, I didn't really. I just heard that saying all the time.
Right. Now, one of my favorite songs on the album is Analog Man, and I really miss those old analog recordings. Do you think the massive increase in technology is doing more harm than good to music and society as a whole?
The judgment is out on that. Some people think so, and Mark he's definitely the analog man. He definitely hates it more than the rest of us. But, you know, there's moments when we all hate technology, and then some other times when it works. See, the thing is, I guess, when it's working beautifully, we all take it for granted and we don't think much about it. But when it doesn't work, and we start really hating it. And I guess I'm kind of one of the guys that sort of embraces it to quite an extent. So I'm not a nostalgic person thinking everything was better back then. But, you know, there's certainly sometimes there's moments.
We are also on the eve of the 40th anniversary of the debut Accept album. I know you guys are planning to do the Symphonic Tour and everything. Are you guys planning to do anything special to commemorate that debut record? And what are your memories from making that album?
Dude, I wasn't even aware of that 40th anniversary. The weird thing is there's always some sort of anniversary, 35 years this,
True.
40, 30, some. So it comes up every year, and so far we've always said, nah, we're not going to do any anniversary tour or gig or anything special, because it feels a little bit like a marketing gimmick at some point, because we have such a long history. You know, we could have an anniversary every year.
True.
But going back to the question, what do I remember? I was like 17 years old, first time in a recording studio, didn't have much of a clue of anything, to be honest. We were just young guys from Germany dreaming about being rock stars one day, or like touring the world and doing all that. We were just like kids at that point, you know, when we made the first album. And we actually, the reason why we even made that first album is because we won. We didn't even win, but we participated in some sort of a battle of the band type concert, and the prize was a record deal. We didn't win that prize, but we still got somehow a record deal out of the whole thing.
And here you are, 4 decades later, still making fantastic records. You have written some of metal's greatest and most enduring riffs. Is there one riff in particular that you've written that when you get on stage and start playing it, you still get those chills, those goosebumps every time?
Oh, heck, there's many of them. I mean, there's a lot of great guitar riffs that are a lot of fun to play. I mean, there's a little more tricky stuff, like maybe Final Journey, or, you know, but even then the simple stuff like Flash Rockin' Man or Starlight is a lot of fun to play. Then, of course, Balls to the Wall. We've played that so many times, but it's still a lot of fun to play. So, yeah, I mean, a good riff is always, it sort of takes a life on its own. You know, it stays forever.
Well, and you've crafted a lot of them, so thank you so much for that. Wolf, again, thanks so much for taking the time. It's always an honor catching up with you. The Symphonic Terror is just a fantastic record. Everybody needs to get a copy of it.
Yeah, thank you very much, my friend. Take care.
Take care.
Talk to you soon.